And we're live.
Awesome. So I guess I'll just say welcome to everyone either watching or at least folks that are on the call right now. Um, I guess I just wanted to start by saying my name is Jay. I've worked with the Adobe projects for quite some time, doing a lot of youth and community development work in arts and education. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk to you all because I've watched these films and they're all so unique in their own ways. And they all tell very, very beautiful stories about your personal experience, about your community, both where you are now and maybe where you've come from. So I'm excited to dig in a little bit deeper and see what your thoughts are, what the experience was like, and what you're even working on right now. So before we get started, I would love for each of you to just quickly introduce yourselves, your name, and a little bit about your film. Does anyone want to start?
I can go.
Yeah.
All right, so my name is Esmeralda Martinez. My film is Pasado, Presente y Futuro. So my film is about my father. I did it on my father, kind of following his life and just his dreams that he had when he came to America. And just about the political restrictions he has encountered and he is encountering right now. Yeah.
So thank you, Esmeralda. Charlene, did you want to go next?
So my name is Charlene Gonzalez. I made Double Vida, which basically kind of the struggles of like being Dominican American, I guess, and having both cultures and dealing with both and not necessarily loving or disliking one or the other, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I'm going to ask you lots more questions, so don't worry, you don't have to get everything in right now. Daniel, do we have you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm Daniel Heyman, and so I don't remember the name of my film, but it's the one with Penny.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so um, so like yeah.
Yeah. What was it about? What was the story about? For those who haven't seen it yet.
It was about so we went to like Riviera or like seniors home, and we interviewed them, and so we it was about like her life and like Penny's life, and like she talked a lot about like technology, how it's impacting our lives negatively and positively, and yeah.
I feel like that seems to be an ongoing conversation. I was actually just talking to someone about that yesterday. Is technology good for us? Is it harmful for us? And it seems like it depends on how you use it. It's just a tool, right? So I'll just jump into my questions now that we know who you are and the film that we'll be talking about today. And I guess my first question is, what excites you about filmmaking? Why do you even do it?
So what excites me about filmmaking are just the stories behind it. Like you get to listen to all these stories, and using film is such a creative way of expressing those stories. And yeah, like you get to tell people's stories and others get to hear about them, and filmmaking is a great way to express all these social issues and political climate and whatnot that we're facing today.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I started filmmaking because I was originally into photography more. Um, but I got really lucky to go to our arts, and I guess I wanted to put my voice out there because everyone has something important to say, and I feel like film was a way that I could do it, even though it was hard. But I was like, oh, let's try it. Um, so yeah, I feel like I guess I wanted to put my voice out there and put important issues out there that maybe a lot of teens are going through, which is like what Double Vida is about. And yeah, I feel like I want to leave people with that feeling of like maybe I can do something about it, or I really relate to the film after they watch it. That was like one of my main goals. So yeah.
The thing I like about like filmmaking and that stuff is that like you can really do anything with it. Like you're like you can be like creative, you can do like anything, which is fun and stuff. Really cool.
Absolutely. And it seems, through each of the stories that you told, they're all very, very different, but they still have some similarities in that they're pulling out different stories from individuals, what they've been through. And in some ways, I think the story that you're telling also inspires people to action, like Charlene said. But I think there's also so many stories to be told. And I could imagine that as you were thinking about how you're going to make this film, what the topic's going to be, that it might have been a little bit of a challenge to narrow down what it was that you wanted to talk about. So I want to just ask, how did you choose this topic or the theme of your film? What was that process like?
When so like when I like so like when I got like when my mom told me about like this thing, like the real youth and like that, like the film thing, I was really excited because I like this subject was like ageism and like how it matters, and I think that was really interesting and I really enjoyed it. So yeah.
Esmeralda, you look like you wanted to jump in.
Yeah. So I'm a student at Venice Arts, and at the time that I was doing the project, our I guess our theme or topic for that semester was identity. Um, and we started brainstorming, and I was thinking of doing my first individual project then. Um, so I was trying to figure out which type of film I should do. And then, so I decided on doing documentary because it's kind of easier for me to be able to interview people and just talk about their lives. Um, and so I was trying to pick a subject, um, and I narrowed it down to my family, and I just started thinking about my dad, who I always talk about, and he always talks to me about his dreams and his goals and how much they have changed coming to America, and trying to give me and my sister opportunities that he wished he could have had back in Mexico.
For me, it was really hard to narrow down the topics because there was a lot that I could, I guess, talk about. But I chose the topic that I did between like juggling cultures because um, a lot of people deal with that, and I feel like it's very hard to manage it because I feel like a lot of the feelings that people go through is like, oh well, I either have to be completely American or completely like from where I'm from. Um, and I feel like that's hard to do because you are part of both cultures in some way. So for me, I was just like, I guess I'm gonna pick it because I have like the experience to talk about it. And yeah, I guess I wanted to spread it to my community because a lot of people in my community sort of have that feeling and deal with that. So yeah.
I think it's interesting how, each of you sort of chose a different path to get to your topic or theme. And sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's telling somebody else's story. But either way, these stories come together in such a beautiful way. And if anyone hasn't watched these films yet, I highly recommend that you do. It's beautiful storytelling, and you really get a glimpse into the lives of these very real people, whether it's you as an individual like Charlene, or Esmeralda's father, or Penny in Daniel's case. The stories are really personal. And so I guess Evelyn has a question here, which is, where do you seek guidance to be able to make the stories you want into film? So, you start with a story, you start with an idea, but how do you get to the point of getting to a film, and where do you get that guidance from?
So for me, I try to find resources. Like I have Venice Arts to rely on, who provided me equipment and just helped me narrow down what type of interview questions I want to ask my father. And then, not to mention, I also have my teachers who I've also relied on with multiple projects, like regular class assignments. Yeah.
Lots of different pieces of the puzzle there.
Right.
Well, we were given like a sheet of paper of like questions we should ask. We didn't have to ask all of them, like we can make up our own. And like we asked a bunch of those questions, and then like we thought of more with those questions. And like as like my group and like Penny were talking, like we were talking about like our story, like her story, and like we thought of more questions of like what we should ask, and that turned into like a documentary. So yeah.
Did you not plan the documentary beforehand? Did you just go in with the interview and then think midway through, this sounds like it could be a documentary?
So like we picked like which questions we were gonna do, like what order, and like we looked at the apartment, we thought of like where we were gonna film and like what we were gonna do, and yeah, so yeah.
Awesome.
For me, I relied a lot on my teachers and my mentors at Raw Arts, and my teammates too. They helped a lot. Like, I don't think I would have done that film if it wasn't for their support, because it's a lot, especially during editing. That was super hard for me, so I really relied on my teachers and everybody else to like give me an opinion and like, I guess, their input on where I should go with the film and stuff. So yeah, I relied a lot on them, and I really appreciate their support.
I can imagine. And that was actually going to be one of my questions, which is, what is the process like? And it looked like, for most of you, you were working as a team. So how do you even go about, giving out roles and delegating? And what was that process like? Or did you just do it mostly on your own?
For me, I did it all on my own. It was my first project. But no, it was also pretty hard because, I dealt with sound equipment and then camera. I was basically doing it all by myself. So that was pretty hard. Especially editing, I did encounter some technical issues.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, my mouse is frozen, so I won't be able to unmute myself. But sorry, what was the question?
What was it like to work as a part of the team, if you did, or if you didn't? What was the process like to work on your own?
Well, it was actually really fun because like we got to like we didn't even meet like I didn't even meet like Penny till like the second or third day because we learned a lot and like got to like talk to like all the different like the other groups, which was really fun. And we got to learn a bunch of stuff, which was cool.
Thank you. I'm glad that you had a fun experience, because I know sometimes putting all this together can be quite stressful and maybe overwhelming, a little bit daunting. But it seems like, you know, at the end of it all, you came out with a film that you really enjoyed, and that you also enjoyed working with the team that you did. So I'm very happy to hear that. And Charlene, it looked like you wanted to jump in here now too.
It was super fun to work as a team on the film. It was, I guess, like for roles and stuff, I just sort of asked around like, hey, who wants to do this? And like whoever wanted to do it, I was like, okay, great. There's never enough help. So I guess I just asked my teammates like, oh, who wants to do camera or whatever, take the shot or help me with editing, and they were like, oh, me or whatever. It was really helpful, and it would have been a lot more stressful than it was if I didn't rely on them for it.
And I'm seeing a few more questions and comments from the viewers. So one for Charlene. Did making the film that you created bring up any sense of nostalgia for you of your first home? And what discoveries did you make when comparing your two homes? So culture, people.
I realized that in terms of like comparing both cultures, it was like there were very few similarities to it, but the differences weren't, some of them like pitted against each other, but it's hard to deal with both, but it is doable, and it's hard to choose, or I guess, well, you don't really have to choose between both cultures. I don't think you should. I guess sort of embracing both of them, I discovered I was like, well, I don't really have to choose either one. I could just live with both, and it would really help. And what was, I don't know if there was another part of the question.
Just if you felt a sense of nostalgia.
Oh yeah, I like during the film I was going through like pictures and videos that one of the teachers at Raw Arts at the time, he had footage from Dominican Republic, and I was going through it, and I was like, oh wow, I miss it a lot because I hadn't gone for like 5 or 6 years, so it was really like nostalgic, I guess, because I hadn't thought about being there for a long time. It was nice.
I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about film and photography in a way, is that it's able to capture things and hold on to them so that they stay in your memory, and those stories sort of live on in a way. And what I noticed about sort of each of your films is that in some ways there's this intergenerational story that's being told, which is a very beautiful and powerful thing, because we're not only learning about what's happening here and now, but how we got here, and what does that story look like, which I found very endearing, and it sort of made me think about my own history. And you know, the person that asked this question also said that after watching your short film, that they realized how hard it must have been for their parents to settle in Canada. And I think that goes for you, Charlene, that also goes for you, Esmeralda, in your film. not in Canada necessarily, but still, what does this look like to be going through this whole process, sometimes alone, and having to do that solo. So being able to capture that in photography and film, make sure that it doesn't sort of like slip under the rug, and that it is out here for people to learn about and understand and get to know. So I think that's a very good point for whoever shared that question and comment with us. Another comment from the participants is that it's very touching and heartfelt, your film, Esmeralda. And they said that every second of the story was inspiring, and the music added a more emotional touch to it as well. And they said that dreams can be bittersweet. They felt sad watching your father not be able to go back and be with his family. But I think, and maybe you could share a little bit about why you told the story, but I think that it's really important that these stories are being told, and that people who haven't had to go through these experiences still understand a little glimpse into what it must have been like. So yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to speak to, how did you choose who you interviewed, and that story?
Like I said before, my dad and I, we talk a lot about his life in Mexico and how happy he was, right? And through this film, I did want to convey like a feeling of hope. He may have not been able to achieve his dreams, but with his daughters, now they're able to live out their dreams, and he he loves that now he could just rely on his daughters and be happy with the choices that they're making.
And a question for you, Daniel, from some of the participants is, what was it about Penny's story and your life that made you want to interview Penny, and look into her stories and views on the world over other older individuals that you could have interviewed?
Well, I really enjoyed like talking to Penny and like interviewing her, because like her life was like very interesting, like not in a bad way, like in a good way. Like it's like it was like really cool to like, not even just Penny, like I like to like learn about like people, like because like we like right now in this time, not a lot of like people listen to like either children or like elders, so it was really good to like hear her story, and like maybe she felt like she was heard, and yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I think, very beautiful that you gave that opportunity, because I agree. I don't think that we spend enough time talking and learning from our elders. And sometimes we avoid it altogether, and we think that we know better than they do, but they carry so much knowledge with them. So I'm glad that she enjoyed being able to share that knowledge, and that you sort of valued that in your creative process. And we spoke a little bit about, what the process was like. Perhaps it was fun, a little bit challenging, but I would love if you all could speak to what some of those challenges were in the process of creating your film, and maybe what are some of the things that you did to overcome those challenges.
Honestly, the biggest challenge that I had was near the end, like saying like when we had to leave and like the whole process was ended, like saying like goodbye to like bye like to like the people that we interviewed and spent like days like talking to. Yeah, that was probably the hardest part.
That's
And
fair.
more like the technical side, um I don't know.
That was easy.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And I think that that's an important part and something that I wouldn't have really thought of, but I guess it's true. You build relationships with the people that you're interviewing, and you get to really know their story. So I imagine that it's difficult to have to say goodbye. And I hope that the relationship doesn't end there, but I can imagine that that was quite a challenge. Esmeralda?
You have to find how comfortable they are answering questions. So for me, I had to talk to my dad, see which topics like he'd be okay talking about and which ones he'd have trouble talking about. Um, so yeah, I had to figure out what type of questions to ask, and then also at the time I was filming it. There was a bit of family drama going on, so that was kind of hard to at least film um like and follow him around as we were dealing with that drama. And on the technical side, um I had trouble with sound. There would always be like a hissing sound, so I spent hours and days just trying to figure out how to get rid of it, or at least for it to be bearable enough so that people would enjoy watching the film.
Right. And how did you end up coming up with a solution?
Um, I had to just look at all the controls that because I was using Adobe Premiere Pro, so I just like looked around, clicked a few buttons, see which worked and which didn't. And I had my mentor Carly help me out trying to figure out what I should do with the sound.
Perfect. Awesome. Glad that there was someone there to help support you through the process. Charlene, any challenges?
Some challenges, I guess, would be like putting my message out to the audience in a way that I guess was like telling what I wanted to tell. The storytelling part of it was hard to figure out, and yeah, but I guess on the technical side, it would be editing, similar to Esmeralda. Oh my goodness, sound was horrible sometimes, and the videos too. So I had to sort of figure out a way to get around that, and there were definitely a few videos and sounds deleted a couple times. Got through it thanks to the support again from my teammates and my teachers at Raw.
Do you have a piece of advice that you would give to the people watching who may be thinking, you want to know what? I think I would like to create a film. One piece of must-have advice for them.
The advice that I would give is that like, so when I first got there, I was really nervous to like talk to like, not talk, but like ask questions, and like certain questions I didn't want to ask. And like the advice is probably to like not be like afraid to ask them unless like they're like not appropriate questions or like bad questions. But like if they're like fine, then like don't really be scared to ask or anything. Yeah.
And that kind of goes back to what you were saying, Esmeralda, beforehand, that you know you kind of had to figure out what is this person that I'm interviewing comfortable with, so that I can ask these questions and not feel nervous or scared to ask them, and what might be, you know, off the table, so to speak. So that's great advice. I am always very nervous about asking questions, so thank you. I will note that for myself for sure. Any other pieces of advice?
I would say just start off small. Find something that you're interested in. Start there. If you don't have a good camera, you always have your phone. That's always a good resource. Yeah, and then as for interviewing, you could start off small too, like start interviewing some of your family members or your neighbors, and then from there just learn how to be comfortable talking to people and just asking about their lives or the topic that you're thinking about, and just yeah.
Some piece of advice that I would give is probably just go for it, because there's never going to be the like right time to get into film or to start doing it. Um, all you have to do is just kind of find a topic that you're passionate about, and it doesn't have to be like a huge topic or anything like that. You don't have to hit every single point of it. You just have to put it out there and put your message out there, and don't be scared of going for it, because no matter, I feel like, how hard you try to get it perfect, it won't come out perfectly, and there's going to be a lot of barriers in the way, but they're fun obstacles, so go for it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. I think that that's really inspiring advice. And I think oftentimes we get in our own way because we get so in our heads that we're not going to do it right. Something's going to go wrong. It's not going to turn out exactly the way that we want it to. And, you know, truthfully, it rarely ever does. So I think that that's awesome advice to just go out and try. And if you're starting small, you'll get a chance to learn, right? And maybe the next time you start growing and you have all of this knowledge and you feel a little bit more confident about it. Which brings me actually to another question from our audience, which is, do you have the confidence to do something like this again? Or do you have projects already planned and upcoming?
For me, it's I'm like still nervous, like interviewing people. It just takes a lot of guts to do it also. So, you know, I gotta find like some ways to like relax myself before I interview someone. As for upcoming projects, originally I was working on a narrative film about school shootings and just the after effects of being in one, I guess. But with COVID-19, that kind of paused. And then right now, I also have an idea of my next project also. So I'm still trying to tweak out some ideas for that.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's exciting. I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
What was the first question?
Will you do something like this again? Will you take on this kind of project again?
Oh, yes, I definitely would. It was like an amazing experience, and it was really fun. Well, I know I keep saying it was fun, but it was really good. And I learned a lot. Like, it wasn't just like the camera stuff that we learned. Like, we learned lighting, we learned sound, we learned also the camera. But we also learned like stories and like actual advice from like I learned like advice from Penny. Like, yeah.
And do you have any upcoming or new projects on the go?
Well, not really, but like kind of, because like at my house, I always just like do like little short films, like any genre, or with like my siblings, but they never want to do any, so yeah.
They don't find it as fun as you, I guess. Got it. Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye out either way. Charlene?
So, well, any upcoming projects, yes, but I'm not like completely set on it. Every single year at Raw, we have like different topics, or like, yeah, like different topics we can do. So I think next year's music video, which is something that I've never done and I never thought of doing, but I guess I'll do it. And would I do it again? I mean, yeah, it was super, super fun. Um, it's very nerve-wracking, uh, especially when I did the first film. I was like, this is not going to get anywhere. Nobody's going to watch it. It's going to be horrible. And it turned out to be super, super fun. And it reached a goal of like getting to people, and I really got to talk with some people about it. So I decided to do it again. Um, and I think I'm going to keep going with it. It's really, really fun, and it's a good way to put your voice out there.
Awesome. Esmeralda, as you were speaking and you were talking about the project on school shootings, I was just thinking about some of the topics that came up in your films were very deep and maybe a little bit, overwhelming, emotionally overwhelming. And I'm curious, throughout the process, how did you take care of yourself, or how did you, maintain your wellness while dealing with some pretty tough topics?
Yeah, it's pretty hard, especially just like reading articles from like LA Times or whatnot about these type of issues. Um, but making the films, like as you go through the process, it's like at least for me, like I've realized that these are the type of films I want to make, like films that just involve like so many type of issues going on around the world. Because there are some that like people aren't really talking about, and it's very important to learn about them and see like how serious they've become. Um, so yeah, it's really hard, but it's something that people should at least know about, acknowledge.
Does anyone else want to share how they're taking care of themselves as they're putting together their films? Or even how you deal with the stress of putting your own creative work out into the world. I imagine that even that is a little bit stressful, waiting to see how people interact with it, the feedback that you might get. I know, sometimes I even put out an Instagram post and I'm like, ooh, I'm stressed to know how people are going to react to this. So I can imagine, putting all of this time and effort and energy into a project and then putting it out into the world is a little bit stressful. So how do you manage that stress if you do have that stress or anxiety about it?
For me, I guess um I really like made sure I sat down and I thought about what I wanted to put out there. Um, and I talked to my mentors and my teachers at Raw of like what part of my life I did want to put out there and what part I wasn't comfortable with, and um, the topic that I wanted to touch on. Uh, and it was really like stressful at some point because after I like shot everything and I had so much footage and so much editing to do, it got really stressful because I was like, I don't know where to start. Um, so that's, I guess, when I really asked other people for their advice on it, or like what I should do with the shots that I already have. Uh, and that really, really helped to ask people for advice, even though it's kind of scary sometimes to ask about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really, really helpful.
Daniel, did you have any stress during the process or afterward? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Well, like whenever I like go somewhere for the first time, or like even like the first few times, I always get like really stressed out. So and like so what I thought of, I was like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And so yeah.
Awesome. So really just thinking about it, and I think Shalini, you kind of said the same thing, is what am I trying to accomplish here? and sort of weighing out, is the stress that I'm taking on worth what I'm trying to accomplish? And it seems like for you all, that was the case, that, despite the stress of having to interview or go to a new place or deal with, files of footage that you managed. And mostly it seems like through team members, through mentors, that it was really helpful. So I'm glad that you got that support. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask, how do you think film can or does make life better for youth in general or in your community? Or does it?
I watched like a TED Talk for like the first time like a week ago, and it was about like a youth, like a teenage filmmaker, and like he does like not documentaries, but he tries to change stuff with like film. And he was talking about like his school, how like the cafeteria sucks. Like I don't have a cafeteria, but it like the food sucks, and so he like I guess that could change his life and stuff like because the the government got involved and like they actually changed like all the food in his like district. So and he did a bunch of stuff like that.
Very cool. And I imagine that, as he was putting it together, he didn't intend, maybe he intended, but didn't expect the government to get involved and to create that sort of change. But I think that we do often see, even these tiny clips, even photos, have the power to sort of create change around the globe. So that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. So I always think like film is such like a good form of communication because people love watching movies. So by making a film, like I find it easier to communicate with others. And so through my film, I just really hope that people like can watch it and be like, wow, okay, this is going on. There are families that probably have the same problems and issues that they're facing. So yeah, that's why I also chose filmmaking. It's like it's such a great way of getting people's attention.
Yes, absolutely. And I think especially in the time of social media where videos really, really start to stand out, right? We see that people are watching videos far more often than they're, reading articles or anything of that sort, as much reading as we do. So yeah, I agree. I think that film and video has the power to really create that sense of solidarity, to know that someone else has experienced or is experiencing what you're experiencing, creates some sort of sense of cohesion that I really appreciate as well. So thank you. Charlene?
I was also kind of going to say that like social media is huge when it comes to movies, or well, it doesn't even have to be movies, just clips. Even on Instagram, you will like scroll down and see a bunch of clips. So it's really easy, like Esmeralda was saying, to like capture people's attention and spread a message through it. So I guess, yeah, it's a really good way to put your message out there, because a lot of people would be interested in just sitting down and just watching it. Like you were saying, like not having to go through an article and read a bunch of it. They just sort of listen to it and watch it.
Thank you. So before I let you go, I just wanted to give the opportunity to you all to say any final words, any questions that I didn't ask you, but you want people to know this one thing I guess, yeah, what's the one thing that you want to share before you go?
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
If you're thinking about like anyone, like if you know anyone, or like if you're thinking about like doing something to do with film, like you should just like try it because it's fun and cool. So yeah.
I love it. Yes, thank you.
I'd like to say, use your voice. Like right now, like so many people are using social media. You got TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat. It's like there are so many ways you can use your voice. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in this world. You should be using it to voice out what matters.
And to everyone watching, your voice does matter. I think a lot of times we feel like we're one tiny person in this sea of people, and that, our voice, our perspective, our experiences are not going to add value to the conversation, but they're so important. Even if someone else has shared the story that you think you have to share, it's never going to be exactly the same. So do it anyways, right? Use that voice, like Esmeralda said. It's so important. Thank you. Charlene.
Kind of like going off of what you said, put your voice out there. If you always have something to share, some story to share, whether it's from experience or from your community or your friends, or anything going on in the world. You have a very powerful voice, and don't think, like you were saying, don't think it doesn't matter, because if everyone thought, my voice doesn't really matter, I'm just this one person in the entire world, nothing would be out there, no movies, no pictures, no anything, because everyone would sort of feel like they're like insignificant in the world. But you really never know where your voice can travel to and how much it could impact people. I know, like, nobody that made a short film really expected to get it to where it is, and never really expected it to reach as many people as it did. So definitely take advantage of any sort of way you can put your voice out there, whether it's through film or through any other art medium. It's really, really important.
Thank you. Those were some very profound quotes there. And I hope that everyone takes those away. And I think, the conversation that we're really having today is about taking advantage, about just trying things, even if they seem like they might be hard or daunting, or maybe they're not for you, and make sure that you use that voice that you have. You may be one of many, but you are still a part of that many. And if no one spoke, the world would be silent. And who knows what would happen then. So I want to thank each of you for joining me and us today, sharing your own story, sharing a little bit with us about your film, and even just giving us advice and inspiration as we move forward, and folks are starting to, delve into the world of film. It seems like maybe it's not as scary as we think it is. So thank you for being here, and I think I will leave it at that. And I think we're back here tomorrow.
Yes, thanks, Jay, and thank you so much for the three of you for joining us for this past hour. The conversation has just been absolutely incredible and so inspirational. And just before we sign off, I just wanted to add that on the YouTube, there's some comments. There's great advice was commented, so thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom. And the last comment I'll leave you with is, y'all are awesome. Thank you. And that's from one of your fellow participants. So with that, I won't say anything else. We'll leave it, and everyone enjoy the rest of their evenings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye, guys.